The emergency sirens screamed across every frequency in the galaxy. The message was simple and terrifying. The Void Swarm had arrived at Station Omega-7, the largest trading hub in the Outer Rim. Billions of lives hung in the balance, and every species in the Galactic Council received a distress call at the same moment. Admiral Zorath of the Villani Empire was the first to respond. His species had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. They possessed the largest fleet in known space. When the Council looked to him for leadership, he shook his great-scaled head and spoke words that sent chills through every listener. The Void Swarm consumed 3 of our colony worlds in a single rotation. We lost 40 million Villani souls. My fleet will not engage. We are retreating to our core systems to prepare our defenses. The holographic council chamber fell silent. Representatives from 200 species watched as the Villani delegation disconnected from the feed. Their powerful warships, which had been moving toward Station Omega-7, changed course and fled toward their home systems. The Crystalline Collective spoke next. Their hive mind had calculated the odds of survival against the Void Swarm. The numbers were not good. 0.3% chance of victory. The collective announced that preserving their species took priority over heroic gestures. Their ships also turned away from the station. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy made their decisions. The methane lords of Gas Giant 12 refused to risk their precious biomass. The silicon mines of the processor worlds determined that organic life was not worth protecting at such high cost. The plasma beings simply vanished from the communication network without a single word of explanation. Within 3 standard hours, every major fleet in the galaxy had abandoned Station Omega-7 to its fate. The station commander, a 4-armed Kethrani female named Supervisor Yalith, watched her tactical display with growing horror. The Void Swarm approached like a dark cloud of death. Behind her, 8 billion civilians of various species waited for salvation that would never come. Then a signal appeared on her display. A single ship was approaching from the far side of the system. It was small by galactic standards. The vessel moved at impressive speed, but its weapons seemed primitive compared to the advanced technology of the Council races. "Identify that ship," Yalith commanded her crew. Her communications officer checked the registry and made a sound of confusion. "Supervisor, the ship identifies as the ESS Perseverance, Earth Registry. It is a human vessel." Yalith had heard of humans. They were a young species, barely 500 years into spacefaring civilization. Their homeworld was a deadly place filled with natural disasters, poisonous creatures, and extreme weather conditions. The Galactic Council had only granted them observer status 50 years ago. They were considered too primitive and too aggressive for full membership. "Open a channel to that ship," Yalith ordered. The face that appeared on her screen was strange by galactic standards. Soft skin, small eyes, and hair growing from the top of its head. The human wore a military uniform and spoke with calm authority that seemed out of place given the situation. "This is Captain Marcus Chun of the Earth Space Fleet. We received your distress call, and we are responding. What is your current situation?" Yalith almost laughed at the absurdity. "Captain, the Void Swarm is less than 4 hours away. Every major fleet in the galaxy has retreated. What exactly do you think one human ship can do against an enemy that has destroyed entire civilizations?" Captain Chen did not seem bothered by her words. "Supervisor, my ship is just the advanced scout. The rest of our fleet is following behind. We should have 37 vessels in position before the swarm arrives. 37 ships. Against a swarm that had defeated fleets of thousands." Yalith felt pity for these foolish humans. They did not understand what they were facing. They would die alongside everyone else on the station. "Captain, I appreciate your bravery, but you should save your people. There is no hope here." The human captain smiled, and something in that expression made Yalith pause. It was not the smile of a fool rushing toward death. It was something else entirely. Something that looked almost like anticipation. Supervisor, my people have been surviving impossible situations since before we learned to use fire. We come from a planet where everything tries to kill us. The water is full of creatures with teeth. The air carries invisible diseases. The ground shakes and opens up to swallow cities, and still we survived. Still we grew stronger. The Void Swarm is just another predator, and humans have been killing predators for 300,000 years. More signals appeared on Yalith's display. Human ships were emerging from hyperspace all around the system. They were smaller than the vessels of the Council races, but they moved with purpose and precision. Their formations were tight and aggressive. These were not ships built for ceremony or intimidation. These were ships built for war. Captain Chen continued speaking as his fleet assembled. I read the reports about the Void Swarm. I studied how they attacked other species. Do you know what I noticed? Every civilization they destroyed tried to fight them using the same tactics. Long-range weapons, energy shields, strategic retreats, clean and organized warfare. Those are the standard methods of galactic combat, Yalith said. They are the most efficient approach. Efficient for normal enemies, yes. But the Void Swarm adapts. They learn from every encounter. They counter every sophisticated strategy. So my people asked ourselves a question. What if we stopped being sophisticated? The human fleet had formed a defensive perimeter around Station Omega-7. Yalith noticed that they were not maintaining the standard safe distance from each other. They were clustered close together, almost dangerously so. She also noticed strange objects being ejected from several ships. They looked like metal containers of various sizes. Captain, what are you doing? We are setting a trap, Supervisor. You see, my ancestors did not survive on Earth by being the fastest or the strongest. We survived by being clever and ruthless. We learned to use the environment against our enemies. We dug pits and filled them with sharpened sticks. We started fires to drive prey off cliffs. We poisoned water sources and laid ambushes in narrow passages. Warfare was never clean for us. It was dirty and brutal and creative. The Void Swarm appeared on long-range sensors. Millions of individual organisms moving as one terrifying mass. They consumed everything in their path, growing stronger with each meal. The previous civilizations they had attacked reported that the swarm absorbed the energy from weapons fire. Shooting them only made them more powerful. Yalith watched in horror as the swarm approached. The human ships held their positions without firing. They simply waited as death came closer and closer. Captain Chun, you need to open fire now. Not yet, Supervisor. We need them to commit to the engagement. We need them to think they have already won. The swarm was less than 30,000 kilometers away when it encountered the first of the objects the humans had deployed. The containers exploded, releasing clouds of strange particles into space. The Void Swarm passed through these clouds without concern. After all, they had consumed radiation, plasma, and exotic matter before. What harm could simple particles do? But these were not simple particles. The humans had released billions of nanoscale machines into space. Each tiny robot was designed to attach itself to Void Swarm organisms and begin transmitting a specific frequency of radiation. The swarm noticed nothing at first. The nanomachines were too small to trigger their defenses. They continued their charge toward the human fleet and the station beyond. Victory seemed certain. Then Captain Chun gave an order that had never been used in galactic warfare before. All ships, prepare for ramming speed. Target the tagged organisms and fire conventional warheads. Let them absorb all the energy they want. When they are full, we close the knife-fighting range and we finish this the old way. Human ships surged forward into the mass of the Void Swarm. They launched missiles and fired cannons, but these weapons were not meant to kill. They were meant to feed. The swarm organisms absorbed the energy greedily, growing larger and more powerful with each impact. What the swarm did not understand was that the human weapons contained more nanomachines. Each explosion spread more tiny robots throughout their bodies. And those robots were doing something terrible. They were connecting to each other, forming networks, creating pathways. When the human ships reached close range, they did something that shocked every observer in the galaxy. They deployed ground troops. Soldiers in armored suits launched themselves from airlocks into the bodies of the swarm organisms. These humans carried weapons that the Void Swarm had never encountered before. Simple blades made of super-dense alloys. Chemical explosives triggered by physical contact. Mechanical devices that tore and ripped and shredded. The Void Swarm could not adapt to physical destruction. Their biology was designed to absorb and redirect energy. But a blade did not use energy to cut. It used simple physics. Force applied through a sharp edge. The human soldiers carved through swarm organisms with brutal efficiency. Meanwhile, the nanomachine networks reached critical mass. Captain Chen activated the final stage of his plan. Every tagged organism suddenly became a beacon, transmitting its exact location to every human weapon system. The scattered fleet reformed and fired coordinated salvos that struck with impossible precision. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Void Swarm had been reduced to scattered fragments fleeing into deep space. 3 human ships had been destroyed. 12 more were heavily damaged. But Station Omega-7 still stood, and its 8 billion inhabitants were alive. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session the next day. Representatives who had fled in terror now stared at the human delegation with a mixture of awe and fear. These primitive creatures from a death world had accomplished what no other species could. Captain Chun stood before the council with his arm in a sling and burns covering half his face. He did not ask for awards or recognition. He made only one request. The next time you send out a distress call, remember who answered. Remember that when all others fled, the survivors of harsh worlds stepped forward. We ask only for a seat at your table and a voice in your decisions. Because the Void Swarm will return, and when they do, you will need us again. The Council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership status. It was the fastest such decision in galactic history. The representatives understood something fundamental had changed. The galaxy had discovered that true strength was not measured in fleet sizes or technological advancement. True strength came from the will to fight when fighting seemed impossible. True strength came from millions of years of evolution on a world that tried to kill you every single day. True strength came from humans who looked at hopeless situations and simply refused to accept defeat. The Void Swarm would return someday. The Council races knew this with terrible certainty. But now they also knew something else. When that day came, they would not face the darkness alone. The Deathworlders would stand beside them, carrying their crude weapons and their infinite determination. And somehow, against all logic and probability, that knowledge made the future seem less frightening.